Something is off and you can feel it. You can see it. And if you've been paying attention, you already know it because once again, the media is celebrating a historic breakthrough between President Donald J. Trump and China. But the look on Xi Jinping's face says everything. I mean, they're calling it this trade framework, a soybean surge, a new era of cooperation. But if this is such a victory for China, why does their supreme leader look like a man that's walking into a courtroom instead of a conference room, right? President Trump just announced a massive soybean deal, 12 million tons this season, 25 million a year after that. And all of a sudden, the same Chinese regime that swore that it would never bow to American tariffs is quietly signing purchase orders and pretending like nothing happened. This is the biggest cultural reversal in modern history. For anyone who's not paying attention, I just want to let the record be known, okay? And yet somehow the Democrats and legacy media, they're calling Trump weak. What? That's right, guys. The same people who spent 4 years letting Beijing run wild are now lecturing America about folding to China. Folks, something's not adding up here, okay? Because what if this trade deal isn't what it seems like on the surface? Like, what if Trump just set a trap that's so subtle and so brilliantly timed that Beijing hasn't even realized that they just walked into a trap? Now, stay with me, guys, because today I'm going to go ahead and break down exactly what's really hiding behind this China deal, why the soybeans are just the cover story, and how this might be the single most underestimated power move of President Trump's second term. Because buckle up, guys, Patriots, we have something that is clearly off in this China deal that I want to expose, and President Trump may have just outsmarted everyone. Hit the like button, subscribe. Okay, folks, when you look at the footage from October 30th, 2025, the summit in Seoul, you don't even need to be an expert in diplomacy to know something was off, okay? There's President Trump, calm, confident, grinning like a man who already knows the outcome. And then there's Xi Jinping, right? Rigid posture, tight jaw. I mean, his eyes were darting like he's like looking for the exit, you know what I mean? And you can't fake that kind of energy. It's like nervousness. That's not a man that's negotiating from strength. That's a man that's showing up because he has to. Now, even mainstream clips can't hide this. President Trump shakes his hand like a CEO sealing a final takeover deal. Xi mumbles pleasantries, but his body language is screaming dependence. Now, Beijing's propaganda painted him as the strong man who would never bow down to U.S. tariffs, but here he is, standing right next to Trump, forced to smile through gritted teeth. And that's exactly what the media won't admit, because if they did, then they would also have to admit that Donald Trump didn't fold. He actually flipped the table. He forced the Chinese Communist Party to crawl back to the negotiating table under pressure that they just couldn't handle anymore. But the real question, this is the one that's really got everybody talking, is this. Why did Xi have to give up to get this meeting? Like what did Xi have to give up to get this meeting? Was this about trade? Did he have to give up something related to survival? Because something is off about this picture, and it's not just the optics, it's the leverage too. Now, here's where the headlines really get tricky. Every outlet from the Washington Post to CNBC keeps repeating Trump reduces tariffs on China. They leave it hanging there, kind of hoping that you're going to think it's like a sign of weakness. But I want to talk about, let's actually look at the numbers, okay? So U.S. tariffs, they went from roughly 57% down to 47%. Now that's 10%, but that's it. But in exchange, America got verifiable concessions, written commitments, timeframes, product categories. Trump didn't just get promises, he got paper, okay? China agreed to restart soybean purchases, increase rare earth production, and crack down on fentanyl precursors. Meanwhile, they're still paying nearly half tariffs on their own exports into the U.S. markets. This is leverage that every president before Trump either surrendered or ignored. So why are they calling it a fold? It just doesn't make any sense, because the establishment wants you to believe that President Trump gave something away. But the truth is that 10% reduction was bait, and Beijing just took the bait. They got temporary relief while President Trump locked them into binding obligations that favor American workers and farmers. And yet something still feels off. The question is, why did China agree so fast? Did they panic? Or did President Trump just pull a move that was so smart and so calculated that they didn't even realize that the trap was set, right? So now this is where things really start to kind of smell a little off, right? I mean, it already looked a little off. We could tell something was off. We could see it. But now it kind of smells off. Out of nowhere, China, after years of defiance, has agreed to buy 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans this season and a guaranteed 25 million tons next year and per year for the next 3 years. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. The same regime that mocked Trump's tariffs, that told the world that we will not bend, just walked back into the American marketplace carrying a checkbook. Now, according to President Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the deal is inked, verified, and backed by additional contracts across Southeast Asia that's totaling another 19 million tons. 19 million tons, guys. Translation, U.S. farmers just regained global leverage overnight. But here's the twist. The media is calling this a temporary truce. Okay, well, the media does what they do, right? They're saying it's just China trying to buy some time. Now, folks, let's be real. You don't pledge millions of tons of American agriculture because you're playing games. You do it because you have to. President Trump knows what he's doing here. Now, China's food security is collapsing. As we speak, their soybean yields have plummeted after years of flood damage and farm failures. Trump knew that. He hit them where it hurts, the stomach, not their wallet. This wasn't about friendship. This was about control. This is why it feels off, because the Chinese Communist Party doesn't surrender unless they've got no cards left. Now, I want to talk about a pressing issue that is facing the United States. This is something that's threatening national security and the future of the American empire. Now, over the past few years, China has been building a dominant foothold in precious metal production and refining, specifically copper. Now, this year, China's share of global refined copper production will hit 57%. Now, if you don't know the importance of copper, it is the number one most important metal when it comes to national security, defense production, and AI infrastructure. Now, if you've been following my account and Trump's politics, you already know that these are absolutely 100% top priorities for the administration. Trump even put out a tweet himself and recently announced a 50% copper import tariff with hopes to bring refining into the U.S. Now, the narrative is clear. Copper is essential and the U.S. cannot rely on Asia. In fact, Trump's policies and strategy, there is one company that sits in the middle of all of this. And that is why I am waiting until today to present our newest sponsor, Copper Giant Resources, ticker symbol CGNT on the TSXV exchange and LBCMF on the U.S. exchange. Copper Giant owns 100% the Macoa Copper Project, one of the largest undeveloped copper deposits in Americas, something that the Trump administration would love to source copper from. Early interest has already shown the company's CEO, Ian Harris, was invited to the U.S. Embassy in Bogota to discuss shipping concentrate to the U.S. refineries instead of China. Once the market realizes the U.S. is securing its copper supply through allies like Colombia, people will wake up. This could be huge. This is the kind of setup you only see when policy, politics, and resources collide. This could be my number one copper stock, and to learn more, visit the link in the description down below this video. Now, again, this video is sponsored by Copper Giant Resources. Do your own due diligence. I am not an investment advisor, and nothing in this presentation should be considered investment advice. Always conduct your own due diligence making any investment decisions. Now, picture this. You walk into the pharmacy to pick up your prescription and the pharmacist says, sorry, your Medicare plan doesn't cover this prescription, this particular medication anymore. Happens every day, unfortunately. This is why I partner with Chapter. They make sure that your Medicare plan keeps up with your real life needs. Now, one of our viewers, she said, I was shocked to learn that my prescription wasn't covered, but Chapter fixed it before it cost me thousands. So let me ask, will you wait for the shock? Or are you going to do what most people already are and getting ahead of it? Now, most people are dialing the phone number right there on the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron right now. And that phone number again is 909-563-8279. If you've been having difficulty reaching Chapter, just click the link down below. It's faster from their website. Now, and if you think that that's all just talk, guys, I want you to listen to what real viewers have already said about their experience. Now, Willa and Pete's mom said, I love Chapter. They helped with my special circumstances and helped me make a great decision in Medicare. And Dear Code 1269 said, I called Chapter and they did a great job for me. Guys, protect your health and your wallet before the next surprise hits you, okay? Now, if you talk to the farmers themselves, you're going to get a mix of relief and suspicion. Now, sure, they're celebrating the comeback, but they've been here before. They remember the trade war years when prices cratered and they were told to just hang in there, guys. Some farmers, if you happen to be watching the show, drop a farmer down below if you guys remember that. Farmers across Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri are calling this Trump's redemption. But even they admit something feels strange. Some analysts are warning that while the soybean demand surge is great for optics, it doesn't erase years of inflation and rising fertilizer costs. DTN and Farm Bureau data shows margins razor thin. They remain razor thin at this time, meaning that profits still depend on whether China actually follows through. Now, this is the part that no one's talking about, okay? The headlines say soybean boom, but hidden between the lines are penalties and verification windows and deadlines written by U.S. negotiators to force China's hand. Now, President Trump, he may have just turned agriculture into America's diplomatic weapon, and China, knowingly or not, agreed to it. Now, the farmers won the battle. But did Trump just win the war, or did Beijing sign something that it can't possibly fulfill? Either way, something is definitely off here. Now, we've already broken down the soybean shock and the farmers' reaction, but it goes deeper than that. Trump didn't stop at the crops. He actually went after China's lifeblood, rare earths and fentanyl supply chains. Now, we've seen the optics and we've looked at the tariffs, but what about the heart of the deal itself, right? Why is China suddenly buying millions of tons of U.S. soybeans after years of defiance? Now, I want to move past soybeans because this is just the appetizer, okay? The real story sits behind the surface of global trade, rare earth minerals and fentanyl precursors. Now, part of this new trade framework, it includes Beijing agreeing to delay or even suspend export controls on rare earths while cooperating with the U.S. on tracing and shutting down fentanyl precursor shipments. Now, on paper, this sounds like a dream scenario. I mean, Trump gets America's critical minerals back, cracks down on the chemicals that are killing over 100,000 Americans a year. Sounds like a great deal, right? But here's the thing. These are the same promises that China has made before. So, okay, what's up this time, right? These are the same talking points that they use whenever they're caught red-handed. And this time, Trump's not taking it on faith. He has inserted verification clauses, very clear language that allows the U.S. to reinstate tariffs instantly if China fails to meet inspection standards. This is why Xi looked like maybe he had swallowed a lemon in Seoul. He wasn't negotiating, he was signing conditions. Beijing's entire tech and defense sector depends on these rare earths, and Trump just tied their export pipeline to American compliance rules. So yes, China may have agreed, but here's what's off. Why would they voluntarily just hand over leverage this big unless they were cornered, right? Now, you would think that pretty much everybody would be celebrating. American jobs protected, farmers rebounding, fentanyl flow throttled, but not the Democrats, not the mainstream media. Within minutes of this announcement, Chuck Schumer, he hit social media declaring, Trump folded on China. MSNBC called it another photo op, and CNN said Xi Jinping got what he wanted. Seriously? Like, what meeting were these people watching? It's almost ritual at this point. Every time Trump applies pressure, the left calls it surrender. Every time he wins a concession, the Democrats twist it into failure. It's kind of like a reflex almost, like a desperate attempt to protect the old global order that Trump keeps dismantling piece by piece. But here's where it backfires, okay? So Biden, he had 4 years to remove Trump's tariffs, but he never did. Why? Think about it. Because deep down, even Biden and his team knew that they were working. So that's why they left him in place. The media script is clearly collapsing. Their credibility, well, it's shot. Because the truth is very simple. Trump didn't fold. He flipped the board game. Okay? Now, here's the twist. What if both sides are missing something bigger? Now, what if the win itself hides something deeper? Now, I want to rewind just for a second, okay? Because just a few years ago, China's propaganda machine was relentless. I mean, they bragged about economic superiority, military innovation, and century-long patience. Their spokesman sneered at Trump's tariffs. Their state-run outlets mocked American farmers. The message was loud and clear. China will never bow to Washington. Now, if we fast forward to October 2025, even November 2025, everything has changed. Xi Jinping, the same leader who once called Trump unpredictable and unwise, is now shaking his hand and signing multi-billion-dollar agricultural contracts under duress. The same strong China that mocked American pressure is suddenly buying U.S. soybeans like their survival depends on it. Now, here's the kicker. It does. After years of droughts, floods, and failed fertilizer strategies, Beijing's internal data shows declining yields and food insecurity that's rising across rural provinces. Trump knew exactly where to hit. He didn't just play a trade game. He played a psychological one. He turned China's pride into panic. But this is what makes the deal feel so strange. Because when a superpower that swore it would never bend suddenly caves, either you're witnessing a masterstroke or a setup. And something about the speed, the silence, and the smiles of the photo op, something about that just feels off. Now, here's where we get into the fine print. This is the part that nobody in the mainstream media really wants to talk about. Okay, yes, Trump secured Chinese concessions. Yes, tariffs were only slightly reduced. But have you noticed the details of this deal aren't fully public? Anybody else notice that? Drop a yes. The verification schedule, the enforcement mechanisms, even the clauses of penalties, they're sealed tighter than a DC court document. Politico and Reuters both admit that the framework is real, but the enforcement process is still under review, quote unquote, right? That is a diplomatic code for we'll see if they actually do it. Now, this is why people are so uneasy. What's hidden beneath this polished surface? Did President Trump agree to something behind the scenes, maybe a larger military or security arrangement? Or is this secrecy part of the plan, keeping Beijing guessing and the press confused? Well, one thing is clear. Nothing in international trade happens this fast without a catch. And when even seasoned economists cannot explain China's sudden submission, you already know that there's more to the story. Maybe this is exactly how President Trump wanted it. An invisible leash that the world can't see. I mean, we've talked about what happened and what might be hiding underneath it, but how is Trump using this moment? How does this actually fit the hero versus villain narrative dominating American politics right now? Well, here's the thing about President Donald J. Trump. He doesn't just negotiate deals, he writes narratives. And this China deal, it's not just policy, it's theater. Think about it, right? The image of President Trump standing there, confident, decisive. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping looks boxed in. This is more than diplomacy. This is symbolism. The America First president reclaiming dominance over a country the globalists once said would own the century. Now, President Trump's critics, they see it as posturing. His supporters see it as payback. But either way, no matter how you're looking at it, polls this week show President Trump's approval rating among rural Americans and manufacturing workers is surging. The optics of power absolutely do matter. And so when you have a White House that projects strength after years of weakness under Biden, well, voters feel it. But here's the tension. Is Trump playing chess on the world stage, or are both sides performing for their own people? Because if Xi agreed to terms that he can't keep, he's going to face domestic backlash. And if Trump locked China into a losing hand, then this isn't just a deal. This is a trap disguised as diplomacy. And maybe that's exactly what he wants. Now, here's where we close the loop, folks, because the story is far from over. I mean, right now, China's promising billions in soybean purchases, mineral exports, and chemical crackdowns. But in global strategy, every move has a counter. If China starts to realize that they've walked into an economic cage, then they're going to try to claw their way out, maybe by manipulating currency markets and flooding exports elsewhere, or tightening alliances with Russia and Iran. Now, this is the gamble that Trump's playing. Short-term concession for long-term control. Now, if Beijing follows through, America wins economically. But if they default, tariffs snap back overnight, and China loses face again. Now, here's the question that is haunting everyone. Did Trump just trap China, or did China just lull the U.S. into a comfort zone before striking back in another area or another arena, maybe cyber or tech or finance, right? This is the off feeling that we just can't shake. I mean, the deal looks clean on paper, but the geopolitics never is. One of these superpowers is clearly bluffing, and only time will tell who folds first. But until then, only one thing is certain. President Trump just rewrote the rules of global trade, and somewhere in Beijing tonight, Xi Jinping is realizing that he's not holding the winning hand anymore. So what do you think, guys? Did President Trump just outsmart China again? Or is there something deeper that's hidden behind this perfect deal? Drop your thoughts down below. And of course, if you're tired of the media twisting every win of President Trump's into a crisis, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video so that the truth gets out. Because while they're trying to spin weakness, we're watching history repeat. And once again, it's President Donald J. Trump setting the tone for the world.